Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This notice has been circulating in my social media group. Anyone who thinks and believes that Zimbabwe situation will change for the better under the current crop of political leadership, that person must, not should, visit psychiatrists for brain assessment. I hate no one, but I'm telling the truth as it is. I think there is some truth in that. Although I would have put it more specifically that anyone who keeps believing that the opposition can win rigged elections is brain dead. There's nothing else to be said about it. If you've been following what has been happening in Zimbabwe, you really have to be brain dead to keep believing these opposition lies that they can win rigged elections. Let's go to one of the fundamental truths, and it was not I who said it, but called it. This is at the heart of our political problem. Our election process is flawed. So flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step is to withdraw. This is what Coulthard said in his book after observing the 2013 elections. Some people have got the problem with imagining what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. Again, if in this day and age you still have no clue what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections, you really are brain dead. This is not rocket science. So, to come to the conclusion that the process is so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step is to withdraw. One has got to say, you've only got to look at the evidence. And you'll see that the process is so flawed, so illegal, the only logical thing to do is not to participate. For the sake of clarity, let me give you one example. The 2018 elections, for example, ZANU-PF was able to top up the votes from Mnangagwa to get him over the line. Why do I say that? There's evidence. And in this case here, it's not just any evidence. It was evidence produced in the court of law. During the appeal, the constitutional challenge by Chamisa of the election results, affidavits was produced in the court by ZEC. And I want you to listen specifically to the point that there were 16 polling stations that had exactly the same number of votes cast, total number of votes cast, same number of votes cast for each of the candidates, same number of spoiled votes. In other words, same in every respect. And one more crucial thing, that in all the 16, Mnangagwa was leading comfortably. Listen to this.
Zimbabwe, they've now held their recent elections, which went well.
International monitors had to force their way through angry crowds to deliver their verdict. They reported serious flaws in the process. It was not a level playing field. Many injured and 3 dead. The opposition says the shootings and the beatings cannot be justified. And an election in which Zimbabwe dared to dream has instead brought back its worst nightmares. There were running battles through the city centre and the streets echoed to the sound of gunfire.
Zimbabwe, they've now held their recent elections, which went well.
You are ready now to start. I am ready. You may start.
Thank you, my lord. What ZEC has done is to violate the constitution, to violate the Electoral Act in a manner which has ultimately benefited the first respondent. National and Central, page 159, the report by the ZBC, it does 2 things. Number 1, it mentions figures. Number 2, it attributes those figures to a ZEC official. It says by 5:30 p.m., 105,000 people had voted in National and Central. The final figure that one gets from ZEC is that an hour and 30 minutes later, plus 370,000 people voted. Is it humanly possible? But it doesn't end there. Then there is the issue of identical polling results. There are at least 16 polling stations with identical results. Identical results for Chamisa, identical results for Mnangagwa, identical spoiled votes. And in all those places, Mnangagwa not only wins, but wins big. It's like a kid was playing with the figures. That, with respect, is not how an election is conducted.
We'll now give the opportunity to Mr. Kanengoni.
The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission cannot be taken to task to say, why is the voter turnout in my central at this particular level and not at that particular level? Voters behave the way they do. No one knows why. Maybe behavioral scientists may be able to answer the question if they study it.
Mr. Kanengoni, there's the averment that several polling stations showed identical results.
And the simple point we make is that there's no need to be theoretical about it. We have the returns. This is something that happened. We show you the returns. And we've put the returns for 2 of those polling stations here to illustrate the point.
You say it happened?
Yes.
But in his presentation, Pofu says it's actually 16 polling stations where the identical results. You heard it?
Yes, we did. Even in the affidavit, they put a bit more of the polling stations there. But we chose this to illustrate to the court. But for the rest, it did happen. It did actually occur.
We'll now go back to the applicant. Why go for speculative conclusions of manipulation?
The point that I wish to make is that this is evidence of manipulation by ZEC after the process. Now, if you go to what they call the primary data, you're going to see manipulated data. So the applicant cannot ask a court to open residue which has already been manipulated. If you go to the residue, you will drink from a poisoned well.
Most important issue there to understand is that it was Chamisa's lawyer who refused to ask to get the sealed ballot boxes of those 16 polling stations to be opened. His explanation why there were all these 16 with identical figures is, oh, a child must have played with the figures. That is the most nonsensical explanation one can think of in the circumstance. The more rational explanation is that this, whenever Mnangagwa performed well, that V11 was entered again. These were duplicate entries to top up Mnangagwa to make sure that they get him over the line to win. Besides the figures being identical in every respect, the one common factor in all 16 of these cases was that Mnangagwa was not only winning, but winning big. The tragedy is, of course, that the Constitutional Court judges themselves did not demand that the ballot boxes should be opened. They should have. Because this was not just an issue, a private matter between Chamisa and Mnangagwa. This was a national issue. Zimbabweans have the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. And that is based on free, fair, and credible elections. And the court's duty in this case was to make sure that at the end of the day, everybody is convinced that this was a free, fair, and credible election. Chief Justice Malava was absolutely right to quiz Chamisa's lawyer, why didn't you ask the ballot boxes to be opened? He pretends that this was not part of the process. It is part of the process. The law says that after the elections, the voting is done, the counting is done, all the materials relating to that result should be put in a ballot box, which should be sealed and witnessed by all those who were the key players in that polling station. And those boxes were there. And when a court challenge like this arises, the judge, the court, can order those boxes to be opened. That is the reason why they're kept. And as soon as the set period after the elections have been conducted has elapsed, those boxes are destroyed and the contents in them are destroyed. But they are kept, at this point, the boxes were there and they've been kept for that specific purpose. And yet we've got the opposition's lawyer, not just member, no, lawyer, advising that no, we don't want to open those boxes, insisting that they don't want to open those boxes. Even at that point, Kamisa's lawyer could have said, yes, Your Honor, we must have those boxes open, because that is the only way we can settle this matter. But he did not. Why? Because the opposition, like it or not, are all but ZANU-PF Team B. Ever since the GNU, in which they failed to implement even one token reform, they've been playing for ZANU-PF Team A to win, and for ZANU-PF Team A to have legitimacy. Therefore, then, for anyone, after 44 years of rigged elections, to still believe idiotic lies from the likes of Chamisa that they can win rigged elections, you honestly have to be brain dead. There's no other explanation for it. Here is a short video clip of Mnangagwa boasting that he doesn't care what anybody says about the elections. Last year's elections were rigged, but he doesn't care. He even boasts that the SADC, the AU, who condemned the election process as flawed, deja vu.
Kana vakatuka ZANU-PF kana ndonyanyisa kufara kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vako vachikurumbidzwa nekuchikanganisa, ukavona vachiti ZANU-PF yakaipa, farai. You are doing great things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu, kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelections anafamba zvakanaka, ndezvavo.
Free, fair, and credible elections are the very essence of good governance. To pretend that somehow we can have good governance without free, fair, and credible elections is naive. And for anyone to believe that we can have a meaningful political change by winning rigged elections shows that fundamentally they don't even understand what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections and why it is important to have free, fair, and credible elections. That is the problem. We have been down this path before, and we really need to move on. We can't be going round and round in circles on this matter. The issue of free, fair, and credible elections should have been resolved by now. And yet here we are. 44 years after independence, we're still failing to hold free, fair, and credible elections. Come 2028, it is clear that some people will be conned to participate in those elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy and thus perpetuate the dictatorship. Because they would have believed yet another lie about Chamisa being able to win rigged elections. We have got to end this madness. Before I go, I'll just quickly read this comment from one of the listeners out there. He's saying that Chamisa has posted that there will be no reforms, no elections in 2028. Well, I think this remark has been said before. In 2014, after the 2013 election, MDCT, then led by Morgan Tsvangirai, made a party resolution. No reforms, no elections. That party resolution, they did not keep it because the leaders themselves wanted to participate. They knew that if they win those few seats that ZANU-PF gives away to the opposition, they'll get the benefits. Indeed, MDC N and MDC T, who were in the GNU, failed to implement even one token reform in those 5 years because Mugabe bribed them with the tokens of high office. That is the reality. So why they should keep on participating in these flawed elections? It's a carryover from what they did during the GNU. It's just that in this case here, they want to give the people the impression that this time they've devised ways of winning rigged elections. Last year, Chamisa told his followers that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Of course, he was lying. But millions believed him, as we know, and they participated and gave the process legitimacy. Why would we want rigged elections? We want free, fair, and credible election because the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country is a fundamental right. Even if somebody was to tell you that, yes, we can win rigged elections, why would you want to give up your fundamental right to free, fair, and credible elections, even if you know you're going to win rigged elections? And what about if you don't? This is what some people are failing to understand. Because every time you failed to win those rigged elections, but because you participated, you cannot go back and say, oh no, we don't want to accept the process. No, you went into those processes knowing that they are flawed, knowing that ZANU-PF was rigging the elections, but you were convinced that you have come up with ways of plugging the vote rigging. Like I said, those who believe the opposition can win rigged elections, they only do so because they fail to understand the fundamental, to comprehend the essence of rule of law and free, fair, and credible elections. Even if you as ZANU-PF, to keep supporting the regime rigging elections is to miss the point completely. Because as many ZANU-PF supporters have since learned, You've got to realize that someday you may find you don't agree with the party. And when you try to get them out of office, you cannot do so because now they've got the carte blanche powers to rig elections. You're only making yourself a victim in the long run. The fight for free, fair, and credible election goes beyond party alliances and allegiance. It is at the heart of good governance. As much as you not like the result, but if you can honestly say, no, the process was free, fair, and credible, you will accept those results. But if you know the process was flawed, the more reason why you find it difficult to accept the result. We need to get over this. 44 years after independence, and we still can't hold free, fair, and credible elections. We still don't know what constitutes free, fair, and credible elections. I think every thinking Zimbabwean out there should hang their head in shame. Thank you very much, those of you who were able to join us this evening. Hope you'll be able to do it again tomorrow, 6 o'clock UK time, 8 o'clock Zimbabwean time. Good night.